for yourself. But I was exposed to their leadership programs, and the very, very first leadership program I looked at was their online self-managing leadership. Now, to give you some context on this, I have been a leader now. I know I look young, still got the black hairs, looking very, very young, but I've been a leader now for about 16 years, where I've been exposed to multiple continents. I have managed teams of anything from 5 very close members in a small organization up to about 125 people dispersed, across various geographic and time zones. And I always felt I was a great leader, and I always felt I knew what journey I'd been on. But when I actually went on this program, I kind of went through a little bit of a transformation, because what Frederick and his team actually got me to do was to stop looking forward and start looking backwards first. So as I went through these insights, what felt like the key moments that got me to where I am today, actually we identified that these were not the key moments. And taking that insight, I was able to kind of look through a different future. And what I've seen since taking that program, 3 months ago, I was the CEO of an organization called the Learning Initiative, predominantly based in Dubai, trying to get a London office launched and a Singapore office. Today, I sit as the chairman. I now have a board, and I've gone through an amazing transformation, which has allowed me to really grow my organization and grow my teams. And I do believe a big contributing factor of that was this program. So I'm going to hand you over to Frederick from Oxford Leadership Group. And once again, guys, welcome, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Shade. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome to those that have just joined now as well. So Frederick, I'm a Swede based in Prague. I have roughly 20 years in what I used to normally call that corporate America. I've been in big IT organizations such as Cisco, Juniper, worked closely with IBM, Telefonica, the mobile network operator. And somewhere in that journey, because I had quite a fast career, at just over 30, I was running a big team of 65 people, European level, etc. And at some point in that journey, I started to ask the big questions. Is this really what I want? Is it really my own expectations I'm trying to fulfill here, or is there something else going on? And as a part of that journey, I came in contact with Oxford Leadership, and I did this self-managing leadership course that Shahid also have experienced now. And despite having been a leader for many years in large organizations, and done a lot of leadership training, the approach of this course blew me away, because it took a completely different angle. And then one thing led to the other. I decided to leave the corporate world. And for the last 5 years now, I've been working with Oxford Leadership Group as a leadership consultant, executive coach, etc., to bring this message further. So that's my story in short. And if we can, what I like to do is to just sort of set the scene a little bit around our approach to leadership, and put some context to maybe parts of what Shahid has experienced and why he found it so powerful. And then we're going to jump into the online version of this tool, and just going to show you a little bit how it works inside the tool. So if you allow me to share the screen, I thought I'd just start with this one. I'm not going to run through a lot of slides, but I think this is a helpful one to understand a bit. Lead others, you must first learn to lead yourself. And we use this, what we call the egg model, for this. And there is this saying that, if an egg is cracked from the outside, life dies. If the shell is cracked from the inside, life begins. And very much, and you can probably relate to this, very much when we go about our life, both professionally and privately, there's a lot of trying to adapt to what the context wants from us. So a company would typically look at the society and say, what does society need? Where is society moving? How can an organization adapt to profit from that? And then inside the organization, the team is looking at the executive board, and how can the team adapt to serve the executive board? And as an individual, you're seeking to adapt to what the team wants. That's very often dynamic in organizations. What we say is that to really transform yourself, the company, and possibly even society, it has to start from inside, especially if you come in as a leader. So we say that leadership is the conversation, because it's in the conversations that you have, whether you stand on a stage and speak to 1,000 people, if you're in a board meeting or with your peers in a management team, or if you have a one-on-one, it's in those conversations people are going to decide. Are they going to follow you with the minimal required or with a potential maximum? And for them to choose the potential maximum, you need to engage them. And here's the thing. You cannot know others to a greater extent than you know yourself. You cannot see in others what you cannot see in yourself. Therefore, all leadership starts within. So what we see is that when people work on themselves and ground themselves in their own ambitions in life, when it comes to purpose, values, and ambition, there's a change of mindset. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about this, related to Shahid's story. One of the more common conversations we have is this shift from being a manager to being a leader. I'll take away the sharing now. The shift from being a manager to a leader. And I like to view the manager as basically the person that knows. Managers typically get sort of a box of resources and is told to, okay, in 2 to 3 years, this is the goals, optimize the resources into the box to deliver. And it's very much about doing and pushing and forward. And very often in your career, as you know, we start on sort of a lower level on the floor, and then we're promoted up. And very often we're promoted for being the person that knows. The best accountant becomes team lead for the accounting team, the best salesperson for the sales team, or whatever it is. And we also then attach our ego to being the person that knows. We think that, okay, if I know more about this specific thing, I'll get a promotion and I'll have a more satisfying career. And that's fine, it works very well. But then that comes to a point where you're asked to step into a leadership role. And as a leader, it's about enabling other people to create whatever they're creating, if that's financial reports or sales or designs or whatever it is. But it's about taking that sort of 10,000 feet view and be able to connect the dots to optimize what the company wants to do and align people's individual energy to achieve that. And that often also creates a challenge for your own ego story, from being the person that knows, building an identity around that, to suddenly that is not so important anymore. It's about how I enable other people to create. And the program we have now, Self-Managing Leadership, that is designed to nudge that. Because as Shahid said, we are first asking you to slow down and look inside in order to ground yourself in the journey you've been through in your life to arrive to the here and now. I thought I'm going to show the model overall, just to explain the context of it, and then we jump into the demo. But I'll just pause to take any questions or reflections on what I said so far.
And feel free to use the chat box, guys, if it's not easy for you to undo your microphone or unmute.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim. You're on mute.
I think it's good to make a contribution, particularly when this is such a valuable topic. I'd say from my own perspective, I'm involved in quite large-scale business change as a project manager. But much later in life, I've got a lot of grey hair now. I've been looking at coaching and coaching qualifications and appreciative inquiry as a way to help others achieve the goals rather than me to orchestrate the change. And the analogy I would use is I've moved from being the conductor of an orchestra to the music teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a nice analogy. There's a beautiful movie clip from Ben Sanders, the famous conductor. And he says, his role as conductor is to find that uniqueness in each player and enable them to unlock that. So there's something about these analogies, but that's true. And I guess also that the experience you're talking about now, moving from being the manager, that is basically telling people to change according to certain metrics and context, to now being the enabler, to allow people to find their inspiration and then facilitate change for them aligned to what the company wants to achieve. Very well, thank you, Tim. Let's share again. So this is basically the model, the methodology that we take participants through in our self-managing leadership. And we have this course in 3 different formats. We do it as a 3 to 4 day offsite. We typically would take a team out, to a conference center away from the buzz of everyday life, so they really can focus in that bubble. That's one way that we deliver this. We also deliver it as live virtual. So we do it virtual over Zoom, but it's live, and we have breakout groups to facilitate conversations, etc. And then the third way we deliver it is like we talk about today with the SML online, where we have a tool that I'm going to demo soon to allow people to take it in their own pace. And sometimes we then attach coaching sessions to that in order to allow the participants to go deeper and connect with each other in the experiences of doing this. We're going to get back to this coaching with it at the end here. So the methodology is basically 10 steps. You have 9 points here, and then the 10th is implementation that you can see in the model. And we start this model from looking at the past, saying with the belief that in order to be clear in the direction where I want to go, it's important to know where I came from. So we have a perspective on the past, we have a perspective on the future. And on the left side, you can see logic, analysis, and hard. And that is the perspective we typically take. We are taught to take. If we are unsure, dig deeper into the data, because there's probably an answer somewhere there. And we base everything on rationale, analysis, and concrete steps. However, we believe that we are more than that. So we also take the softer side, what we call here intuition and creativity, which is not about sort of pushing for answers, but allowing yourself to pause, to see what bubbles up. And I'll show you examples of this as we go through the demo. So we start in facts, where basically the big question is, how has my journey been to the here and now? What are the key events that have been formative for who I am in the here and the now? Then move on to insights and ask, so looking at my journey to here and now, what are the patterns I can see? The patterns of helpful habits or thoughts, or unhelpful habits and thoughts that maybe have held me back. Then we move on to, so knowing where I came from, what my journey has been, having a bit of understanding of the patterns that I've been living to according to my life. What could this point towards in terms of purpose or contribution that I want to have to my own community, and maybe even extend that to society? And if I have that purpose, what are the core values I need to live by as a leader? To be true to myself on this journey towards purpose. And now you can see what they are in the future. And then after the vision, we move over to sort of the more harder logic and analytical side, and we ask ourselves, when I have a vision, what the future could look like if I live my purpose according to the values. We ask ourselves, okay, what are the barriers, the obstacles that could potentially trip me up? And then we typically look diagonally across to insights as well. So what are the patterns that have held me back in the past? And how can I make sure that those patterns don't trip me up again? And how can I leverage the helpful patterns to really move towards my vision? Barriers, we can start formulating goals. And from the goals to strategies. From the strategies, can move into an action plan. And the participants leave the program with a 90-day detailed action plan, where they also have a buddy to help them, support them with accountability, but also, celebrating the successes. And then they move into implementation. So as you can see here, we take a holistic approach. And we also say that you are one person. You cannot separate your private life from your professional life, we believe. They have overlaps. If you have a lot of drama at home, that's going to somehow impact how you show up at work, and vice versa. And I also, this program is typically where Oxford Leadership starts engagement with companies. So as an example, we are quite often asked to come into a dysfunctional management team. Maybe, you know, the top leadership team or so on, where they just don't seem to get things done the way they should. Sometimes we step into an environment with a bunch of big egos, always fighting for the last word, and they don't see themselves as sort of coherent team striving for the same things. But irrespective of the situation, we always start with this self-managing leadership, because we do exercises that allows people to be honest and vulnerable, and we establish a baseline of trust. And if you don't have that baseline of trust, it's very difficult to get a team to work together and start talking about shared purpose, shared values, and shared vision. We have around 900,000 people in the alumni for this program. And it's the cornerstone program of a lot of large organizations' leadership development. If you go to our website, you'll see plenty of organizations that we have worked with. You probably recognize a lot of the names there. Okay, so that's enough in terms of slides.
I have a question, Frederick.
Yeah.
I didn't want to answer it myself, so I thought I'd leave it for you at this point. Why fourth industrial revolution was specifically mentioned on the egg slide?
Yeah.
I've got my view, but I'll let you.
I think Anu is answering it correctly himself. That isn't it always about developing yourself first? And I think that's true. However, I think it's becoming more important with the fourth industrial revolution, because you are more exposed in terms of, are you a great leader or not a great leader, because of how the environment of leadership is changing. We are moving away from, I mean, the traditional way of leadership comes from the church and military, right? Building hierarchies in order to control organizations, where you, through your position, had mandate to tell people what to do. But with the fourth industrial revolution, we're moving away from that very, very fast, even faster now, thanks to Corona situation. So it's much more about managing in matrix organizations. It's much more about how can you connect individual people's individual aspiration to the benefit for the company to make things happen. If we look at younger generations, you know, Gen Y, Gen Z, all research shows that it's more important for them to feel that what they do is meaningful, which means that traditional way of leading doesn't work anymore. So you're right, it has always been about that, but you've been able to get away with not being able to lead yourself first, thanks to the hierarchy and the titles. In today's environment, you're going to be exposed if you cannot lead yourself first and tap into other people.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Frederick, obviously for terms that the industry is hearing, look, we're obviously being exposed more and more to knowledge workers, you know, the fourth industrial revolution. We're hearing things like artificial intelligence, data science, you know, IoT, digital transformation. Now, the problem with a knowledge worker, and you can refer this to obviously Drive from Daniel Pink, you know, autonomy, mastery, purpose. So if you lead with this old military style, unfortunately, what we're seeing across the stack is that leadership is still trying to do that, and then we lose these specialist skills. What we need to do is adapt and recognize that what we're calling the fourth industrial revolution, it's already here. We've passed the turning point. The data is already showing that. And what we're actually seeing from an industry trend for leaders, look, BMW, your Apples, your Teslas, these are not car manufacturers, or, you know, today Apple is the largest watchmaker in the world. Are they a watchmaker? No. They're actually delivering technology via the means of their watch, which is now being used for multiple purposes. And this is shifting, you know, the hierarchies to a dual operating model where we're hearing a lot about innovation, you know, innovation, customer network, adaptive networks that are built around highly motivated, high-performing teams. And one of the biggest factors of contribution to not creating high-performing teams, as Frederick touched on, again, just linking back to the 5 dysfunctions of a team, there's no trust. How are we getting them up the pyramid if we don't work through trust, and then we don't get them into points of conflict? And if they're not getting into conflict, how are we creating accountability? And how are we taking people away from their personal ideological views to a shared understanding. And that's the role of the leader. The leader is not going anywhere. The leader needs to shift. The leader needs to recognize that there are now new ways to get us, the results that we need in this really complex world.
Thanks, Shahid, for answering. This is Anu. And I think I would like to add something to what you have already explained in terms of adaptability. Specifically, with respect to this Apple's example, I believe more than technology, it's about being ambidextrous. Yes, it's quite dependent on the leader how you want to move ahead, considering the changes around. And regarding this fourth industrial revolution, I think other than just technology, globalization has also creeped in, and somewhere this pandemic has further added to that. So again, this comes back to the adaptability more than anything else, because somewhere people have become a little, I would say, now looking at the trend, the countries would adopt more of protectionism policies to safeguard their own interest and people, and because this pandemic has led to lots of recession and job loss, so in such a situation, obviously even the leaders are in a dilemma. So whatever they have acquired over the years may not help, because this situation is again new to everybody.
100%. Thank you for that, Anna. I think adds some great value to the wider picture. And I think we can all talk about this for hours, I'm sure. So if there's no other questions, then I think, Frederick, we should show them the magic.
I'm going to jump into straight into the tool that we have. So this is the web portal. You can see the URL there, mysmlonline.com. If a company decides to purchase this, we can, do it with white labeling. The company can get their own URL, their own logotypes, everything, But this is the one we use now for Oxford Leadership. And this is actually Shahid's profile. So we can have a little bit look at his transformational journey that he described in the beginning. If I scroll down, you can see the wheel or the map that I described before with the different key questions we're asking ourselves in this. And you can see here that the first 3 steps are taken. You have a link to other things as well, inspiration, etc. You can, all the way as you go through, collect all your work inside this portal. And I thought I'm going to jump into facts and just show you a little bit how this tool works to guide you on this journey. So let's see. So you can see here, you can really do it in your own pace, where it's explaining everything with session objectives. I think it's a very nice interface how to work with, very sort of easy on the eye, engaging, not too much text. And it's setting out, why do we ask you to do this journey and why is it important? And then when you're ready to start, each of these modules start with the founder of Oxford Leadership, Brian Bacon, just setting a little bit of context. So I thought I'd just show you, I'm not going to play the full, but show you a little bit about how that works. Can you hear the sound?
All right, so we're going to start with the facts. We're going to look at where you've come from. I'm going to help you get a sense of what your journey has been from the past up until now. Developing and getting a sense of your past and your lifeline, looking into the rear view mirror of your life, is a really powerful and important step in preparing you on chapter.
I'll stop there, but you get a feel for how each of the 10 steps is presented in this program. And then when you have listened to this, we use exercises. There's typically 1 to 2 exercises per step. For the fact step, we use an exercise called Lifeline. So where did you come from and how did you get there? And it's basically taking account of what are the key events that have shaped you. And then you do an exercise where you start to map these key events Yeah, we have this full stop as well.
Can we stop here, Frederick? Because from
Yeah.
my own experience, what felt like, I'm just going to give my own words here, guys, what felt like a gimmick of a sound and resonation and getting into the zone, these full stop I'm not going to ask Frederick to play it because you get that magic if you get into this, actually helps you memorize and be able to recall information in a way that I've never actually seen before. Now you have to recognize, look, I'm a facilitator training over 35 to 40 different topics. At any given point, I am rapidly learning new things and I'm trying to keep these things. Your brain is a hard drive, right? And we've got to be able to index it. By using this exercise, I'm able to remember every single point, the key points that we just went through, and I'm able to articulate it at least 6 to 8 weeks later, which means I've given myself an opportunity for behavior change. Because if you just watch the program and then run through it and do nothing with it, you're not going to adapt. It's just a tick box exercise then. So I just wanted to call that out, Frederick.
I think that's a very important addition. So thank you for stopping us there. And also, you know what we do here is we use kind of a Tibetan singing bowl, that sort of bell sound. And sometimes participants, especially when we do it in a live session, right? They think it's a bit silly in the beginning, like Shahid said. But in the end, they typically come and ask us, where can I buy one of those bowls? Or where can I get that sound on an app? And they love it. And very often a big takeaway from the leaders going through the program is that they start to implementing full stops in their daily life. Instead of running 120 miles per hour all the time, they make a commitment to take sort of 5 or 10 minute full stops during the day, just to be able to breathe, relax, reflect, maybe reflect on the meeting I just came out of. What was it actually about? Take some notes, reflect on the learnings, and maybe do a full stop to prepare for the next thing on the calendar. So why am I going into this meeting? What is my intention? And so on. So I think, broadly speaking, generally speaking, these full stop moments is a key takeaway for the participants doing this program. Because we don't take care of ourselves, allowing ourselves to stop and reflect, because we're always pushing 100 miles per hour. So we have this full stop moment throughout the entire program on a frequent basis, just to give you that space to stop and reflect, like Shahid illustrated with his own story. And then we are asking you to actually do the Lifeline. So as you can see, the interface of this tool is very intuitive. And Shahid here has taken a moment to reflect, what are the key events that have shaped me through my life? And he has put sort of a header for the event, age, and just collecting the different things. In the next step now, Shahid has been asked to now grade this on the y-axis here from high to low, happiness. And it's important here that we're not looking at the CV. As I said before, we see it as a whole person. So it's all types of events, as you can see, everything from career to getting married, to meeting your love of your life, personal, illnesses and stuff. And then you're asked to grade it. So here we have, high school, for example. I'm just going to decide, Shahid, for you that was very high.
Definitely the wrong way, Frederick.
It is? Okay.
High school can go the other way.
I suspect this is a high.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you create this graph based on your own events. That sounds like a low, getting a Ferrari. Anyway, you create this life event, and then what you do, you take some time and reflect. Okay, what are the patterns I can see here?
Frederick, can I stop
you? Do you want to talk to this? Yeah.
Yeah, look, it was a really important moment, this, because you've actually taken the Ferrari to the right place. What felt to me at that time was a goal that I set at the age of 16 would have been one of my happiest moments in life, which was a split-second thing during the purchase, actually gave me a different realization that it's not the materialistic things that drive my true inner happiness. And they are just small moments, you know, of a goal that I set as a 16-year-old boy, you know, coming from a middle class, you know, low to middle class family, that was a goal. And when I actually went through this, I assumed it was one of my highest happiness moments. But what it actually led to me realizing is that I still treat it no more than a car that takes me from A to B, and it will never offer any further value. And the value to my life would have actually been just hiring it for a weekend. So it does give you these, and I'm really sharing some personal moments here, guys, right? This is what was the real insight that started going, that's not what defined me. And then I think you'll realize as you go through Brian's points, and this gives you the example of how I use the full stop. Humans typically go through a transformation every 7 years, and there is a cycle that you typically go through. And then I was able to then work through that and then see roughly every 7 to 9 years, I was having a transformation that was taking me on a different trajectory. And if I was able to realize that trajectory was going down, I could have done something about it much earlier. So they were the key insights for me from that, Frederick.
Yeah, beautiful. And when we facilitate with a group, we would typically then ask participants in groups of 3, whether we do it online in sort of a large conference center, or if we just do it with the management team, you know, to build trust, as I said before. We typically ask people to go out in triads, or if it's a management team of, let's say, 6 to 8 people, we do it as a whole group, and then share their life story. And the power of them speaking out their life story to each other is fantastic. And I think we're achieving 3 things. One, we realize that we are all people with aspirations beyond the role we represent. We have our own fears, we have our own, you know, dreams and goals and history and luggage and everything. And we realize there's so much to connect us. And that connection builds trust. And we also start to, you know, like Shahid said here, to see that, okay, I can see certain patterns emerging in my life. So if I look at my own lifeline, I can see that every time that I'm starting to, the curve starts to point down again towards a low in my life, there are typically times when I haven't set boundaries, when I for some reason just keep saying yes. So that leads to exhaustion and burnout and just overwhelm. And I've had quite a fast, you know, successful career in big companies, but it also means that the pressure is always on. And my inability to say no and put boundaries in place for what I think I'm capable and can deliver on has led me to the curve starting to point down and then hitting a low. So my lifeline includes, you know, burnout. It includes periods with a quite problematic relationship to alcohol, etc. And I can see a clear pattern of what's going on in my head and the context that is challenging me to stay on track. And at the same time, I can see a clear pattern where the lows are turning towards an up. And I feel that, you know, life is good again. And I feel that I'm really walking my purpose and fulfilling what I'm here to do.
Yeah. I think Frederick, on that point that you've just touched on, I think, again, a really, really powerful moment. And I want to ask the guys their questions on what they've just seen. But again, a really, really powerful moment, I want to share this personally, is we all go into lows. There's no doubt about that. What I'm able to do now as a low is allow myself to be in the low period because I need to digest and comprehend and understand it. But I'm also able to give myself a time of period, which is say 2 to 3 days, where I can allow myself to feel like that while I go back into a point where I know I can do something about it. And I'm now using that as a point of downtime to think. So it gives you the actionable tools that you know you can get yourself out of it. Whereas most people, they go into a low and they're waiting for circumstance to change something for them. But I'm able to kind of go through into that and say, right, okay, I'm going to have tomorrow off. I'm going to allow myself to feel low so I can connect with that emotion. But after tomorrow, 1, 2, 3, this is what I'm doing. And generally then I see a big spike. So, again, it's myself and Frederick, Frederick Somoxa Leadership. I'm from Learning Initiative. I want to hear from the guys, Frederick. What do they see that they could take away from such an experience? I know they haven't been on the training, they haven't seen the videos, but what is...
You're muted, buddy.
Sorry, what is it that you think you could take away from going through an experience like that?
Or just give us your reflections on it. If you don't have a takeaway yet, just tell us what you see and what are the thoughts triggered by the stories we've told.
Quite scary talking on a virtual platform when you don't know anybody. Look, I think, Frederick, one of the things we should show, unless Tim
is showing up. Tim, go for it.
I'll see if I can provoke some debate from the others attending the call. I mentioned a little earlier that my personal journey has been through coaching. And one of the interesting things about coaching sometimes is what you might call self-authoring, which is to just reflect back. And I can see strong similarities between that process of reflection on your own journey and what trajectory that is giving you, and then how you feel about that trajectory. And there's a lot of value in that, not just as improving you as a leader, facilitator in your business, but actually about personal growth, independent of what you choose subsequently to do with that knowledge. There is a lot of great value from that.
Thank you, Tim. Excellent. Yeah, and I think you're referring to Keegan there with the socialized mind, the self-authoring mind, and the self-transformational mind. And that is a journey we all go through, but we can nudge that journey for ourselves by actively working with it and taking time out to reflect and think about how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others. And if I can add one more thing there, that journey, it's called adult development theory. Keegan is famous for his work there. That is also about increasing your capacity to deal with polarities and complexity, the ability to hold different perspectives in your mind at the same time. So as a leader, you realize that this is a more and more important skill as the world is getting, more VUCA, more chaotic, more moving parts, the speed is higher. So I think, as Tim says, the importance of taking time to reflect and think about how do I relate to myself, how do I relate to others, is important for both personal and professional development.
Yeah, I think, Frederick, if we can just quickly show, because I think the Q&A might be a bit less than we thought. I think one of the things to show is obviously this stuff is not stuck in an online platform that you can't get to. The journals and the sheets, and if somebody's looking at this from a corporate perspective, one of the biggest things we find with online learning is that you can't find or you don't get access to the learning and the journey that your employees are going on. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at it yourself, you can print your learning journal, you can download it, do what you need to do with it. But also from a corporate perspective, being able to get into them insights depending on what's been agreed and what's not been agreed, having that learning journal is a great way for your organization to see what things you need to do to change the culture, right? Culture doesn't change by attacking culture directly. We need to think about principles. Principles will guide the practices. Practices are then adapted and adopted. And in turn, this leads to your high performance and your culture changing. And these kind of insights, when I look at it as not as a personal person, but as a business leader, helps me understand my people as people, not as assets, as we keep talking about them. Somebody that does my operations for me, somebody that does my sales for me. It really gets me to understand, well, where are their goals and what is their personal GPS, not just the organization's vision and goals and the organization's GPS that's going to get us there. Because you'll also find insights there. So there was somewhere, I think, on the learning journal, Frederick?
Yeah, so I just want to comment on that, because what you say is absolutely true. You know, nudging culture is about, you know, values and then behaviors. And I think the way we typically would use this tool is that this is a very personal journey. And we always say that this is non-confrontational in the sense that when we do it in a group setting, we're never pushing people to be vulnerable, and sort of, we never ask them direct questions about, you know, childhood trauma or, you know, the latest fight with the boss or whatever, right? People set their own boundaries for how much they're comfortable sharing. At the same time, we say that the more you share, the more you're going to get out of the program. And people find that these conversations in triads are very, very nurturing. I think people are longing for real conversations. We're so preoccupied with this sort of quick snippets on our phone and this type of stuff. So that real conversation where you sit down and actually have a proper conversation, and your conversation partner, you can feel that they're actually listening to what you're saying and you connect over stories, is so powerful. So, and connecting that back to what Shahid said, I think it's important to make sure that this is a personal experience. However, it will prime people to, in a separate exercise, talk about what are the behaviors we see in the organization, what are the values we try to live after, which behaviors are positive for the culture, which are not so positive for the culture, and how can we as a team nudge this? So it's a fantastic primer for thinking about, okay, we are just a collection of individuals trying to achieve something. And what can we do together to shape the behaviors that are going to take us to what we want to achieve? So let's go back to exit the session. We have here my journal, where Shahid can review all the steps he's done so far. We also have, we didn't touch on this in the demo, but we have what we call reflective inquiry, which is basically where you sit back and you listen to a voice of a couple of questions, where you're basically in a sort of a meditative state or reflective state, where you see what bubbles up. It's not about pushing for answer, but try to quiet your mind to see what are the things bubbling up in your mind that can inform you about how you relate to yourself and others. We call that reflective inquiry. And you can see here that for each module, this goes on. And Shahid can then download this as a PDF. And then in addition to these specific exercises, there's also a notepad where the participant can take notes related to the experience. And we do encourage taking notes because there's this sort of powerful cleansing feeling of actually putting all that's buzzing around in your head down into paper. When you're forced to articulate the thoughts, they typically become clearer. And it also allows you to get rid of toxic thoughts by putting them on paper and then throwing them away. So we really encourage note-taking during this process. Shahid, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, no, obviously I took my notes and this is just my demo account, but all my notes were, you know, taken. What it allows me to do is capture my thinking at the time and then also adapt my thinking. I think the problem with using physical books, firstly, you've got to find it. And then whatever you wrote down, you've got to scribble it out and it makes a big mess. Using this all in a digital platform really allowed me to then go back and say, actually, let me play on that thought a little bit more as I explore the findings. But what it really led to was an exploration exercise that happened again and again, you know, created lots of learning points for me and allowed me to adopt and adapt rather than get into this big upfront design of who I am and what my leadership should be and who am I as a person. I mean, look, let's be honest. At 16 years old, we don't know what we want to do. I wanted to work in HSBC as a bank cashier. So, you know, we've got to learn to do these kind of things. So I think, guys, look, I think from a demo perspective, we wanted to just share some insights on what, you know, self-leadership and what the self-managing leadership and the approach from Oxford Leadership. Obviously, Learning Initiative is the representative partner for Oxford Leadership in the Middle East. And what we wanted to kind of give you was that insight so you can get a view and a feel. Now, does anybody have any questions? Sorry, Frederick, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one little thing about the journey as well, which is a question we quite often get, which is around purpose. Because on this journey, you're also going through this step of what is my purpose or my gift to the world? And purpose can be quite a scary word. It's being thrown around a lot, and people often think in terms of Gandhi or Florence Nightingale, or you have to save turtles on Galapagos or something. But we take purpose from a very personal perspective. What is my gift, and how can I impact the closest to me by serving them and giving my gift? And then eventually that may spill out into wider circles, and maybe someday that does change the world. And then the question often comes around, but what about doing this purpose and vision work individually, and how does it relate to my professional life? And some people are afraid that doing this journey is going to make people realize I'd rather have a bar in the beach in Thailand or open an art gallery in Paris or something. But it doesn't happen. What do happen though is that when people get clarity on their purpose and what's meaningful to them, they can make much clearer connections to the objective and the purpose of the organization. And they can come more alive and find ways of expressing what's truly meaningful through the organization. So it's actually sort of liberating people, and it taps into this mastery, purpose, and autonomy that Pink Drives talks about. I think that's an important addition.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. So any questions, guys, before look, I'm not going to let you go without loading up an offer today. So let's see if there's any questions, and if not, Frederick will load up the offer, and we'll see what people want to do. Any questions, please put them in the chat. We're happy to get you guys to unmute. I know some of you joined quite late, so we do have a recording. I know you're a very quiet bunch, which means you're very reflective, thinking. So here's the offer, guys, if there's no questions. What we are offering today, which you wouldn't get on a standard kind of platform purchase, is one element of this is going through the journey and being there on your own. And Tim, you're gonna love this because you're a coach and you know the power of coaching. So one is getting to the end journey and having your own strategies and your own implementation and your view on what's going on. What we're offering today, and this is going to be the same on the second webinar, look, the first 12 people to purchase the online version, and we will get some pricing out to you guys, will also receive a group coaching with myself and Frederick for an hour to actually go through some of these insights. Now, when the group have purchased, we will agree whether that's at the end of the past, at the end of the future, or at the end of when you've done your implementation. But the power in that is being able to take, you know, the benefits of Frederick's long experience in this program, and obviously also my long experience around being a coach and a driver of excellence. So the loaded offer today, guys, is first 12 people that do purchase and want to purchase. We are going to book in a 1-hour coaching session with both myself and Frederick. Now, if you were to purchase that coaching separately, I want to be very transparent. We are Oxford Leadership Group. We're the Learning Initiative. These things aren't on a freelance rate. You would pay £4,000 plus VAT for that hour for 12 people. So we're giving that away for free. You'll get the loaded offer today in the next couple of hours, and then we'll give, you know, as soon as the first 12 are in, we'll lock that out and we'll come to some sort of agreement. I'll get on a 5-minute call with you guys and we'll work out when you want that coaching session. So I hope you've enjoyed today. And I hope this is something that's kind of inspired you to maybe try something different. And if anybody wants any reference on us, Yasin, you there? I saw you sneak in right at the last moment. Yasin? Can you unmute? I think he's still on mute.
Well, we're waiting for him.
Yeah, Yasin's been on a journey with me for about 15 months now. Mm-hmm. So he knows us very, very well.
Nice.
He's on mute. Frederick, anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to also highlight the fact that we do this in different formats, and we have organizations where we have rolled this out with physical, for director level and above, and then we use this SML online to cascade it out to the rest of the organization. So there's a lot of different ways of doing this in an organizational setting.
And how long do they get access again, Frederick, once you buy the platform access? I can't remember what it was.
It's a long time. I can't remember the exact, but it's, we'll fix that if there's any hiccups.
Perfect.
I think for individual use, I think it's lifetime. For organizational purchase, I think there's some kind of limit, but.
Perfect. All right, Khalid, I see you got to go. No worries. Thank you for joining. If there is nothing else, I appreciate you guys' time. If I can get back 6 minutes to have a quick coffee, then even better.
But maybe we should clarify the pricing, because I got a question here about the £4,000.
Yep.
You can obviously buy the access to the platform and do this yourself, and that's €300 per license.
Yep.
That offer stands. What Shahid talked about was just the extra. If you're quick on this and you want to receive coaching, the first 12 who purchase for €300 will get this hour of coaching for free.
And for those in the UAE, that's about 1,320 dirhams. It's cheaper than going out for dinner in Nusrat and eating one of them salt-based steaks. So that's the reflection on that. So yes, just to clarify again, Frederick, thank you for that. If you purchase the online directly via TLI, the first 12 people that reach out and purchase will be given that coaching session for free, and we'll all come together for an experience, which obviously will be led by Frederick, and I'll join him on that and kind of get you some real insights out of the thinking.
Yep. And then as a standard, it's €300 per license, which you can come to Shahid for at any time.
Fawad, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Shahid and Frederick. Thanks for
Hello.
having this session.